Hello everyone, welcome to our next video, and today's class we are dealing with the plant breeding. We are continuing the plant breeding concepts. We are beginning another new one, that is the plant introduction concept, and after this we will also be dealing with the germplasm concept, which are very useful and very important to know in general for a general agriculture student. So let's begin the topic. Plant introduction. The name itself indicates that taking a genotype is a plant variety or a group of genotypes of plants into a new environment where they were not grown before. It's very usual. With the name itself we can describe the definition, and among them there are two types, that is primary introduction and secondary introduction. Primary introduction: when a plant or a genotype is introduced to the new environment and it is well suited to that environment, and further it can be used for the commercial cultivation, means there is no process, means here there is no further hybridization or combination will make it. They just go and plant there, it is well suited to that environment, and they go for commercial release. That is called as primary introduction. You will get a proper idea on the primary introduction when I explain about the secondary one. Just remember the examples of the primary introduction. These are very familiar one. The semi-day of wheat, Sonara 64 and Lerma Rojo, and semi-day of rice, Taichung 81 and IR8, IR28. They are well suited to our environment and brought from the place where it has been not grown here. Then it is left for the commercial release. No further process has been made on this. Next comes the secondary introduction. See, in the secondary introduction, a plant variety is introduced to a new environment, means a new place. There the selections are made. Then they will isolate such species and release into a new variety. And in a developed countries, this is very common, and there also exists another mechanism that they use this genotype as a source for the, donor for the hybridization. The hybridization, they use it as a donor and select a particular character, and they adopt into the cultivar which is already practiced here, and that's a different mechanism. So it is also used as a parent for them. This is very common in developed countries, means where they have a special mechanism for this introduction. The best example is Kalyan Sona and Sonalika, which were released by the cement. In India, these were selected and then released into a new variety or commercial cultivation. Now we shall discuss few things about the plant introduction agencies that were established in India and working in India. When it all began, the concept of plant introduction in India, that is in the 1946, a centralized agency was initiated at ICAR-JRF, New Delhi. They began as a plant introduction scheme in the division of botany. In the division of botany itself, they began it as a plant introduction scheme, and it was funded by ICAR, Indian Council of Agricultural Research. In the 1956, during the second 5-year plan, this scheme was expanded. The plant introduction scheme was expanded as Plant Introduction and Exploration Organization. They converted into from a scheme to an organization in the second 5-year plan in the year 1956. In the year, that is 1961, it was made an independent division at ICAR-JRF. Before that, it was under botany division, but now it has made an independent division, that is the division of plant introduction. And this division was reorganized into a NBPGR, that is National Bureau of Plant Genetic Research, in the year 1976. Leaving that, means NBPGR, there is other institutes. Forest Research Institute in Dehradun. It deals with the introduction, maintenance and testing of the germplasm of forest trees. See, let's just a glance what about the NBPGR. That is, first in the 1946, it was introduced as a scheme, plant introduction scheme. Later it was taken under the botany division, and in the second 5-year plan this scheme was elaborated, that is in the 1956, and the scheme was known as Plant Introduction and Exploration Organization. After that, in the 1961, it was made into an individual division, that is ICAR-JRF, the division of plant introduction, and this division was reorganized into NBPJR. This is the story line of the NBPJR, and this is about the Forest Research Institute and all. There is another institute that was established in the name of Botanical Survey of India in the year 1890, long before the independence. In the 1890 it was established, and it was dealing with the medicinal plants and many other plants and their introduction and all. But later it is still dealing with few plants, but the medicinal plants were taken under the NBPJR. NBPJR is dealing with the medicinal plants now. And there are other boards also, like a tea board and some coffee board, pepper board and all. They also deal with the introduction of those particular crop in India, but they are controlled by the NBPJR. NBPJR is a sole body that is controlling all the plant introduction in India, and forest research has its own importance in managing and research and all. Now that's all about the institutes that are dealing. Main NBPJR, Forest Research Institute Dehradun, then Botanical Survey of India. These are the major 3 institutes and some boards also. The procedure for the plant introduction. There are 5 important procedures, and no need of much notes regarding this. So I will just explain the process and the things what happens during a particular stage. That is initially the procurement of germplasm. In this, when a scientist requires a genotype which is grown in the outside as a source or something, he just puts it quote for the need of that germplasm. Then NBPJR look into its sources, and if they have, they will provide with whatever the process is there. If they don't have, then they will put a quote to the international level, that is either maybe IBPJR, International Bureau of Plant Genetic Research, IBPJR, or the country which has such germplasms. So by this mechanism, they will put quote to in a need of such germplasm. Usually they are exchanged as a gift. Sometimes they have to pay, but most commonly they used as a gift, exchange gift and all. If those international bodies, either IBPJR or a particular organization or particular botanical garden, don't have that germplasm, then IBPJR arrange an exploration. Exploration means they go in search of sources of those germplasm, and they collect based on the propagule through which the propagation takes place. Such propagules are collected from the exploration, and they're then brought to the organization office, and there they provide the need, means where there is a need, they will go for the supply there, and finally the procurement of germplasm will be completed by this. Next process comes the quarantine. Now they have collected the propagules from the exploration, but they just can't supply it to the countries. First they have to go for the check, that is the quarantine check. There are quarantine rules, means to prevent it from the disease or pest or something that contains the weed species, sources and all. First they have to check for those. If they don't complete those rules or quarantine rules, they should not be supplied. And whenever we are intaking some propagules or the germplasm from a source country, they should provide a phytosanitary certificate. Remember, a phytosanitary certificate is must during the germplasm supply, and when it is brought here, we also go for checks, and IBPJR and NBPJR has their own rules, and if the rules are not met, then they are destroyed by the NBPJR itself, or they will be returned back to the country from where it has been brought. This is the process what it takes, and I will tell you the few plants that are prohibited. That is one is cocoa and Theobroma species from Africa, Ceylon and West Indies. Don't confuse with the Ceylon. Ceylon is a Sri Lanka. Sugarcane from Australia, Fiji, New Guinea and Philippines and West Indies. Rubber plant from America and West Indies. Sunflower from Argentina and Peru. Unginned cotton of Mexican jumping beans is strictly prohibited. These are all prohibited one by the NBPGR, means they don't follow the quarantine rules. Remember, the important one is the phytosanitary certificate. Remember, the NBPGR usually prohibits the intake of the germplasm from the other countries of particular crops like tea, black pepper. There may be contamination, or sometimes the diseases of those spreads in a wide range, and that will be very devastating, and it may lead to removal of the cultivation of some plants. So they don't go for intake of such germplasm. Just know about that. Then comes the another one. We have completed the quarantine now. Now the cataloging. See, cataloging is a very important. Now it has finished the procurement and a quarantine. Now it is best for the supply. First, after that, the propagules are taken, and above that, first you have to write the name of the plant, that is the species, genus and species name, scientific name, and the plant species, then the variety name and the place of its origin and its characteristics, and all mentioned and labeled there. There also comes the important three naming, that is in the label they have to mention this, either it is a exotic collection or a indigenous collection or a indigenous wild collection. See, exotic collection means EC, indigenous collection means IC, indigenous wild collection is IWC. If you see that, you can identify by this the cataloging will be done, and thus the characteristics will be described of a particular germplasm. Now the NBPGR works, that is the procurement, quarantine, cataloging are done. See, after that the evaluation must be done, because consider India, we have a large diversity in India itself. Some plants grow very well in North India, some plants do not in the South India, and there are many plants of such. So the evaluation must be made. The plants that were catalogued means they have followed the quarantine rules and the best they have done. Now we have to go for the evaluation check. That is, that plant would adapt to this environment or not. We should look into that. And I hope you remember a word, that is the acclimatization. See, acclimatization means the process in which a plant adapts to a new environment. So that is called as acclimatization. That is very important for the evaluation. It should adapt to the new environment, and the variability should be present in the germplasm itself. The variability will be must, because if there is no variability, then the survival of that germplasm will no be longer. I hope you know the importance of the variability. And the promising ones go for the multiplication and then the distributions. By this, the plant introduction will be made. Remember, first the germplasm should be collected. Remember what I told, how this will be done, how the coat will be made and all. Then the quarantine rules, quarantine checks, and the phytosanitary certificate. Then the cataloging, EC, IC, IWC, name, labels, origin and all. Then the evaluation, acclimatization, where it should be done. Then go for the multiplication and the distribution. This is all about the plant introduction. See how long process there is for a plant to be introduced into the new country, because there are also threats of the bio war and all. So we should be very careful. We should not allow our India to suffer from the foreign activities. And if you get some, by this I also give some messages, because recently I heard that some plants were sent to the farmers in a form of couriers and all, and they are not by the Indian government. Sometimes we should go for the check. If you get any sources, any plants from the outside country, outside sources, please don't do that. See that it should be cultivated in India. and it should be adopted to India. If you get any sources from the outside, please don't go for the cultivation of such. It is very important, and as a duty of Indian citizen and Indian patriotic citizen, we should not go for that, and we should don't allow our India to suffer from the foreign invasions, as it's a duty of the Indian agriculturalist. So by this I end this video. Thanks for watching this video. I will meet you in the next week. Thank you.